visit to the media. And I'm just keeping my promise by being here with you again today. The position remains the same as far as we're concerned from the side of the PPPC. We can count these ballots a bit faster. I think today is likely to be our best day. We're likely to complete like about 90 ballots today. And so far, I think we just have just over 1,300 ballot boxes were counted. And what is important of all the ballot boxes counted so far is that we have less than 4,000 rejected ballots. And in addition to that, less than 100 of those rejected ballots were unstamped. So I would like to use this opportunity. My mask is falling now. I'd like to use this opportunity to dispel the rumors about the joint services ballots being unstamped. As you know, the joint services would have voted before the 2nd of March. And there's a procedure for the intermixing of their ballot. The joint services ballots were intermixed, and there's no report out of GCOM of all the joint services ballots or any of the joint services ballots being unstamped and therefore rejected. As I said, out of all the boxes counted so far, we just have about 100 votes that were reported to be unstamped. So it's mischievous, it's irresponsible. Sorry, I think somebody. It's mischievous, it's irresponsible for anyone to report that the joint services votes were not counted in this election. And I am taking this opportunity to dispel that rumor. Our hard-working joint services, first and foremost, they're citizens of Guyana, and they participated in this process, and their votes were counted. Their votes represent the respect for the will of the people. And that's why we're here today. We're here at the recount of the votes in keeping with an expression that the will of the people of Guyana, including the joint services, are respected before we conclude this process. Again, we in the PPPC are confident that we've won these elections. Notwithstanding the misconduct, or some of you call it the mischief of Mr. Mingo, we have in our possession, and you heard this many times before, we have in our possession the SOPs that were presented to us by GCOM, no other than GCOM. We have our copies of the SOPs from. Utilizing those SOPs has led us to the conclusion that we won these elections. Everybody is aware of Mingo's mischief. The whole recount is an effort to verify this whole electoral process. We're having a recount. The recount, at the end of the recount, GCOM is expected to do a number of things, including declaring the results of the recount. We are confident, and you know so far from the newspapers, we've been publishing our copies of the statement of polls versus the statements of recount for Region 4 to make the point that the statement of polls in our possession and the statement of recount from this process for Region 4 have so far been exact or similar, give and take a few errors here and there, right? And that is making the point that the recount process is necessary. It's necessary to determine the will of the people. It's necessary to determine who will govern this country for the next 5 years. The joint services votes are included. And I want to come to another important point. You notice the shift in narrative. No less a person than the leader of the APNU AFC coalition himself is shifting the narrative. And you recall recently in one of his encounters with the media, I think it was on the Ben Scarf program, he mentioned about the Roop Narayan formula, where 51% must not behave as if they won 100%, and 49% must not be treated as if they only had 0%. That is introducing a conversation about inclusive governance. And following him, you would have read in the papers, some of you would have reported on it, and you have seen some of the programs where this discussion of inclusive governance has suddenly taken center stage. But notwithstanding the change in narrative and the taking center stage of this discussion, I want to take your memories back to the manifesto of the PPPC. In our manifesto, we mentioned clearly that constitutional reform is a front burner issue for the PPPC. In other words, on conclusion of the elections, of course we are confident that we will be victorious, and we are victorious as I speak here today. We're just awaiting the recount process, and we respect the recount process. Constitutional reform, which will include discussions on the way forward for inclusive governance, will be started by the PPPC. It is part of our agenda, it's part of our manifesto, and we are the ones who started this whole discussion as part of this electoral process of constitutional reform and inclusive governance. It's heartening that they are changing the narrative and they're coming on board with us. However, we've said it before and we say it again, and I'm saying it now today to you. Respect the people who voted on the 2nd of March. We respect the will of the people, and we're committed to seeing this recount process to the end and respecting the results of the process as declared by GCOM. Because that is ensuring that democracy prevails in Guyana. And only through a democratic process we must determine who win or who lose. And after then, only after respecting the democratic process, must we engage in any discussion about constitutional reform and about inclusive governance. I think I made it very clear, and perhaps now I can open myself to any questions.
Mr. Phillips, can you say on this matter of inclusionary government, can you say what structure does the PPP envision for this time?
Well, it is too early for us to talk about structure. We would prefer that whatever structure and content the discussion will take, it will be from a discussion with all stakeholders. So we are not going to talk about structure now. We prefer to allow the democratic process to determine who wins the election, and after then, we will sit down with all the stakeholders and we will hammer out a structure. You start inclusive governance by being inclusive, as against being dictatorial, as against trying to dictate a structure.
What would the party want to see from the other side to come to the table? Because the PPP would have said before they're interested in inclusive governance, but they would point to a lack of trust or or we need to start to build trust first. I'm wondering now, what's the starting ground for this discussion?
As I said before, and I said again just now, the starting ground is the democratic process. Once we conclude the democratic process and the will of the people is respected through the democratic process, whoever forms the government, and we are confident that we will be forming the government, as early as possible, we will invite all the stakeholders. Okay, we will have our positions, yes, they will have their positions, and we sit there and we hammer out an approach to work. We are not ready to disclose what is our position now.
I heard you spoke about the discipline services ballots not being on staff, but I can clearly recall the public relations officer, Ms. Ward of GCOM, as well as Mr. Alexander and Mr. Gunrad. She's talking about on-stamp ballots, and mention was made of disciplinary services ballots being affected, and that the commission would have to decide how they would treat with that. Are you saying that the PRO of GCOM lied?
Well, I'm saying that at no time did we heard from GCOM that any 10,000 or thousands of ballots being unstamped. And for anyone, any of the stakeholders, to perpetuate that discussion in the media is mischievous and irresponsible. And perhaps I will ask that if you could, respectfully ask the same question you're asking me again to the PRO for GCOM. Well, I hope that they can put out a statement on it.
You say 10,000, you're saying thousands.
Yes, because that is in the media.
But we were told that there are cases of unstamped ballots, and that the disciplinary services, those who voted, may have been affected. Their votes are affected.
I will like GCOM to definitively put out a press release pertaining to that, because our records are showing that of the ballot boxes counted so far, there's just about 100 unstamped ballots. And none of the 100 unstamped ballots can be determined at this stage that it belongs to the discipline services. There's no way of us knowing that. So the onus is on GCOM to clarify whatever doubt you have about the unstamped ballots pertaining to the discipline services. Any further questions? Thank you for having me here again. Is there any further points you want to make? I think we'll have more encounters with the media. As you know, we like you to go beyond the 25 days, and therefore there will be an opportunity or more opportunities for us to speak to the media. Thank you for having me here. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Mr. Phillips, if you could come a bit early, it would be good for us.
You're a bit tired now?
No, not tired. News time, you know? Because some news go at 6, some go at